Hey folks, many fans looking forward to the highly anticipated sequel to Breath of the Wild think that our old friend Fi from Skyward Sword could be making a return in this upcoming game. There were hints to Fi's presence in the first game, and now more in teasers to the sequel. But is Fi actually coming back? What are the pros and cons of this potential return? And just how could/would Fi actually return? That's exactly what I want to delve into in today's video. Get comfy, and as always, be sure to go and grab yourself a snack or drink and send them to get featured right here, and also be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel out. And let's get into this one. Before getting into how Fi would/could return and what Fi would do in the game, let's talk about the pros and cons of a return. I'll be going point for point, tit for tat, for and against. Here we go. Point 4. Drama. Fi returning would have a huge dramatic impact on the game's story, that's undeniable. Fi is the spirit of the Master Sword, who was our companion in the first ever chronological Zelda adventure. We travelled the entire land with them and created a connection with something that is supposed to have no emotions. Fi left our physical side at the end of the game to reside within the blade and keep demise sealed. From this point on, we never see Fi again, but in a sense, they're always in there. Sadly, in this new game, the blade is looking worse for wear, and Fi returning for any reason would be emotional and dramatic. Point against. Fi is supposed to be in there forever, with no return. That somewhat implies regardless of the blade's condition. In a way, it would feel like breaking the rules already set down if Fi was to return, possibly even taking away from the dramatic and emotional ending of Skyward Sword. I don't personally think that this would be the case, but I can see it being the case for some fans. Maybe a lot. Point 4. It would add a lot more depth to the references to Fi in the first game, developing the lore of this new era of Zelda. When Link was close to death during the Calamity, we saw the blade glow a bluish hue. Zelda herself even mentions that this could be the spirit within the blade. What if Princess Zelda was right? It would make a moment like this hold a lot more substance going into the sequel. Point against. It could come off as repetitive. Reason being, they'd be reusing a character from a past game instead of making a new unique character. Those are my few pros and cons that come to mind, and ultimately there will likely always be pros and cons to whatever is added or re-added to the game, so these points shouldn't mean Fi can or can't return. I'm just throwing them out there. Let's now talk about ideas for how Fi could return and what role they'd play in the story. My first idea. Fi is our companion for the majority of the game once again. Assuming that whatever happens to the blade happens relatively early on in the story, going off of the combined footage from the trailers and teaser footage so far, it looks to be early. The damage to the blade causes Fi to be released. In a sense, their home has been destroyed. Obviously this should mean that demise is free as well, but that's another can of worms for another video. So Fi is free from the sword around this point in time. Just like the adventure of Skyward Sword, Fi helps us throughout the game in order to build up the Master Sword, only this time, it's to repair the Master Sword. This idea would have a huge tie-in to the Sky Islands. They look pretty ancient and the type of thing that Fi would be knowledgeable on. Perhaps Fi is our guide to this unknown land, just like they were to the unknown surface in Skyward Sword. We'd bit by bit fix the sword back to its best, and when that is done, we'd end up saying goodbye to Fi once again. Overall, I do like this idea, but I feel it's too much for a character who's already had a main companion appearance and was also said to never return, or at least implied. But other than that, it's pretty cool and would also offer a cool way to develop Fi a little more, maybe in a more human way opposed to the emotionless robot from Skyward Sword. My second idea. We are out to save Fi's life force within the blade. Somewhat similar to my first idea, but without actually ever seeing Fi. So we'd get hints and forms of communication with Fi, such as the blade glowing, but it'd go beyond this. Not sure how, to be honest, maybe some sort of Morse code or something along those lines. Either way, Fi would communicate through the blade, and the quest would be restoring the blade and Fi's life force, in order to be able to seal any evil. You could say that this isn't Fi appearing per se, but when they communicate through the glowing and whatnot, we'd hear a soft rendition of Fi's theme, more than confirming that it is Fi in there talking to us. This would go on up until the blade is back at its best, and after that, Fi would stop communicating as there's no more issues with the blade to talk about. This is a simple but cool idea in my opinion, and is more in line with the references from Breath of the Wild. My third idea. Fi appears at the very end of the game for the final battle. Unlike the first two ideas, in this one we wouldn't have many hints or indications to Fi appearing until the very end, when it comes to the final boss fight. Let's say it's Ganondorf, as that is the most likely outcome currently. The battle goes in typical Zelda boss battle phases. The first two go pretty well, but as we enter the third phase, Ganondorf grows unbearably strong to the point where we are struck down and all hope now seems lost. Link is struggling to get up, in parallel to the calamity, and we see Ganondorf's blade drawn above Link's face. A bright blue light beams bright from our blade and blasts itself at Ganondorf and his blade, knocking the King of Evil down. And as Link manages to get up, we see the long-sealed Spirit of the Blade Fi projecting their powerful energy to hold the King of Evil down, just long enough to let Link recover. From here, Fi joins the battle from outside of the blade, and together we take on Ganondorf and put an end to the evil plaguing this era of Hyrule. After the battle, Fi says their second farewell, and peace is restored once again. I would also like to add the option of some more lore being added from Fi, but I don't really know what, to be honest. My fourth and final idea, Fi makes a brief but dramatic appearance at the very end of the game. This is probably the best idea in my opinion. As I mentioned earlier, I think that Fi throughout the main story could come off as an unoriginal idea due to being reused from a past game, also giving the game a lack of a new companion. But after all is said and done, Fi appearing briefly could be a touching tribute to everything that the Blade has been through, not just throughout this game, but throughout the years, the entire timeline from the moment we sealed her in there. Not just that, but also laying down some new lore regarding the Master Sword and its divine power. Obviously, this is purely creative, but something that I think would be cool is Fi coming out and stating that due to the sword's grand age and resilience to be repaired, the blade has grown in power in ways that even Fi themselves couldn't imagine, beginning a new era for the blade, a new power, I knew everything for the blade. The reason I see this as the best way to go about bringing Fi back into the series, despite only being briefly, is because Fi's story is finished. It finished at the end of Skyward Sword, and bringing Fi back for anything more than just a tiny snippet in the sequel would completely tarnish and take the impact out of their story in Skyward Sword. A touching tribute at the very end is the best way to go about it. All of these ideas could work, and like I said, there will always be pros and cons. Personally, I think this would be the best way to go about it. Have a post-game cutscene where Fi appears very briefly, but keep it at that, and only that. That's what I think, but let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. OGs leave comments, by the way. If you leave one, you have my personal gratitude. If not, that's okay. You have my gratitude just for watching. Just know, I do read and reply, and I'm also interested in your responses. Go on, leave a wee comment with your thoughts. I'd appreciate it. Be sure to drop a wee like down below as well if you enjoyed, and also consider subscribing for more fabulous Zelda content. Both would make my day. Follow my socials linked below to keep up to date. And as always, a huge, massive, amazing shout out goes to all of my channel supporters. Thanks a ton. Your support really helps me to make these videos week in, week out, all month long, 365 days a year. If you'd like to join them and get yourself a shout out upon joining, then consider supporting via the links below. Thanks for watching. I hope you all have an amazing day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.